Welcome to the Empowerment Show with Melissa Heisler. Every week, discover new personal choices with practical, inspiring guides. And now, here's Melissa.
Welcome to the Empowerment Show. I'm Melissa Heisler, stress reduction expert at It's My Life. And it is your life. Live it. Today, I will be talking to Neva Balduff about her near-death experience and how it changed her life. Welcome to the show, Neva.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you. I don't know if you know, there's a movie that was just released based on a best-selling book called Heaven is Real, about a near-death experience.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I haven't seen it, but I am aware that it's there.
Yeah, I have not seen it either, but maybe you can tell us about your experience.
I will make it as brief as I can, and because we have time constraints, I know. But in 1973, at the age of 38, and so people won't have to add it up, I'll be 80 in September, I had a long involved back surgery to correct a scoliosis that I had had since childhood that was becoming worse and causing more pain. Surgery was long and involved about 7 hours, and for some reason in the recovery room, my blood pressure dropped to zilch, and the doctors told my husband and father who were there that it did not look good at all. I wasn't aware of that because I was experiencing a phenomenon that was so incredible to me. I felt as though my head was expanding, filling up like a balloon, filling up with air, getting larger and larger. It wasn't unpleasant. It was just strange. And then I heard a voice say to me, let it go, set it free, set it free. And I popped out through the top of my head. Didn't go through a tunnel. I didn't see a bright light. I was just out. And I became aware that there was a presence of some kind at each side of me. Couldn't see anybody, couldn't hear them. I just knew they were there. I felt that they were protective and maybe guides. And that's what they turned out to be. It guided me through this experience. We were up in the air above the earth, and I could look down, and the first thing I saw were fields of flowers in beautiful patterns. The flowers were glowing with colors that I can't even describe, and swaying like not by wind, but maybe to music. I don't know. But they were incredible. Then we went a little further, soaring through the air, and I looked down, and I saw an ocean, crystal clear. I could see every form of life in the ocean all at once, clear down to the very depths of it. And then we went over a desert, and I looked, and each grain of sand was like an individual diamond. It sparkled. And then we left there and swooped down, and we were in front of a large building, sparkling white, maybe made of marble, I don't know. The only thing I knew to call it was a temple. We went up some steps and went into this building, and on one long wall, about as long as a football field, was a huge tapestry on that wall. I was only allowed to view it for just a couple of minutes at most. My impression was that it was a story of creation, but I don't know that, but that was my impression. We left there and went up into the sky, up into the night sky, where the stars were just brilliant, and we just kind of hung suspended in space. Very peaceful feeling. I don't know how long we were there, not long, I don't think. And I became aware, in my left field of vision, in a distance, I could see a pinpoint of light. It wasn't white, it was gold. And as it came toward me, it became more brilliant and larger and larger and more brilliant. And then it was standing beside me. I couldn't make out any features. All I knew I called it a being of light. I didn't know what else it was. some people who have, when I related this story to them, say, "You know, it was Jesus." I said, "No, I don't know it was Jesus. I don't know who it was or what it was, except that it was total, unconditional love and acceptance that I had never, ever felt on this earth. As much as I love my children, my mate, my parents, anybody, it didn't compare. And I would have been willing to stay there with that light forever in that bliss." And I started weeping. And telepathically, I said to this being, thank you for letting me see. It's so much more beautiful than I could ever have imagined." The being of light reached out and took my hand and telepathically told me, I know, almost like it was comforting a child. And then the last words were so simple yet so profound. "My friend, there is so much more." And that was it. And I was back in my body in the recovery room. I didn't tell it. I didn't tell anybody about this experience for a long time. I grew up in the Bible Belt here in Oklahoma, in a generation where conservatism was the key, and grew up in a very conventional family. And I thought, if I tell people, they're going to either think I'm crazy, or it was the medication, or my imagination, that it wasn't real. When I knew in every fiber of my being that it was the most real thing that had ever happened to me. And I wasn't willing to have that denigrated in any way by somebody else's opinion or comments. So I didn't share it, except with one friend. Now, I can go on from now. Now, if there's something that you would like to ask me while I take a sip of water.
That would be perfect. I was going to say, what a beautiful description you gave of that journey. And I think it's really interesting. A lot of the near-death experiences are the white light, the tunnel. That seems to be a lot of the story, or a lot of what people experience. And yet you've experienced almost the beauty of life.
Yes.
And of nature, and the words that were given to you were so simple and yet so expansive.
Yes, they were. And I was to learn later what the much more was and is and continues to be because it continues to grow. I finally shared the experience. Well, first, I took a meditation course to help with the pain. I had to have a second surgery in 1975 to remove the rods in my back because one had broken. My back healed improperly, and I was in more pain than ever. And I didn't want to have to pop pain pills all my life, and I thought there has to be a better way. So somebody mentioned meditation to me, and there was a lady coming to town who was going to teach meditation, and my friend and I signed up for the course. I thought, what have I got to lose except a few dollars? So anyway, I really felt a connection with this lady, and my friend at the lunch breaks told me, she said, I think if you would talk to this lady, you could tell her about your experience, and she might understand. Lo and behold, we sat by her at lunch, and I turned to her and said, can I talk to you about something? And she said, yes. So I told her. And she was very nonchalant about it, I thought. She said, oh, well, you've had a near-death experience. I said, I've had a what? She said, you've had a near-death experience. She said, there's a book by a man named Moody that you can read that will explain it maybe better. So I got the book and read it. Of course, tons of books have been written about it since. And I found out that it's not that uncommon. And so then I was asked later by another friend if I would teach the meditation course in their Sunday school class. And I said, only if everybody agrees. And he asked everybody, and they said, okay. So I said, all right. So I did. After the class was over, a man and his wife came up to me, and he was a local businessman, very well known locally and statewide. And he said, Neva, would you and Fred go to lunch with us today? He said, there's something I want to talk to you about. So we did. And he shared with me, or us, that he had a similar situation. He had a bleeding ulcer, and he had essentially died and had a similar experience. But he said, I can't share it with people because I have a reputation to uphold. I'm a businessman. I can't do that. And later I thought, how sad. How sad that you can't share a beautiful experience like that. And I thought, well then, teacher, listen to yourself. Start sharing this experience with people. They may believe, they may not. It doesn't matter. It might help somebody. And I found that to be very true. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with that. I think so many people have had, whether it's a near-death experience or have some kind of otherworldly experience, and they are afraid of sharing it. And I always say, I don't care if it was, your unconscious mind giving you this great journey, or if it actually happened. I won't debate it that I don't care, because I can see how it changed your life.
Yes.
And I think that's all that matters. And if we
they can see how it's changed your life also, because I've had people talk to me about how my life has changed from being, I wasn't actually a selfish person, but I thought the important things in life were a beautiful home, nice car, nice clothes, jewelry, belong to the right organizations, pretty superficial really. It just flipped my world upside down. And I started a spiritual search trying to find answers to this. And it finally led me back to my own church, but in a very liberal setting, thank goodness, where I can share these things with people. And it's been a wonderful experience. So,
and that was, go ahead.
No, what is do you have another question for me?
Well, I was going to say, it wasn't just this near-death experience that kind of, that shifted your viewpoint of the world and what you saw as important, and starting to see the beauty in both life and other people. But you had another trial in your life when your husband became ill.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. He had a heart attack when he was 50 years old and had bypass surgery. And then at age 73, he was crossing a downtown street, walking across the street, and he suffered a heart arrhythmia, became unconscious and fell backwards and hit the back of his head. And he had a bad skull fracture and was life-flighted to Wichita for treatment. He was on a ventilator for several days. We didn't think he was going to make it. He survived, but he was never the same. He could function in some ways, but his thinking wasn't as clear, and many changes. That was in 2005, and he passed away in 2007 of another heart attack at home. In the interim, those 2 years, I was dealing with issues I never thought I would have at all. And I turned to prayer and meditation and everything to try to help me. Well, I would suddenly start waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would be almost compelled to write. And it all came in the form of poetry. Now, I'm not a great poet, and I'm not a great musician. I'll talk about the music later. So I started keeping this little diary of poetry, expressing my feelings during this time, whether they were ones of sorrow or of gratitude or anger, all the emotions that go through one when you're dealing with something like this, and expressed it all in poetry. Well, I shared it with some friends, and they said, this must be published. And I said, oh, no, I'm not going that route. Well, at the insistence of my minister and other people, finally it came about, and it was published, and it's called Uncommon Prayers. So that happened in, it was published 2010, I believe it was.
But it's really a beautiful book. Uncommon Prayers for an All Too Common Journey.
Yes. And
it is very beautiful poetry, so don't knock yourself down there.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, what I like about it, too, is it's not, when we think of poetry, at least what comes to my mind is the flowery words and, where we have to search for meaning, where really your poetry is so much more like a dialogue. It is so grounded. It is, and it's so raw, just about really what you're feeling.
Yes.
It was very lost and afraid.
Very therapeutic for me. And I found it to be so for other people. I'll have people that don't even know, but know me, will walk up to me and say, I have your book. And maybe their husband or their mate has Alzheimer's or has suffered a stroke or some other brain damage. And they find it very helpful. And that's been the blessing in my life, that it's helped other people besides me. I read it myself to comfort myself sometimes. I always say it came through me, not from me. And that's the way I feel. It was like I was taking dictation. And that's the way most of my writings have been, that it's just there, and I'm the scribe, and I write it down. So it wasn't an effort at all. It was very therapeutic for me, and I think has been for other people too, and that's what I want it to be.
Absolutely. And it was almost a gift given to you to heal yourself. And through the book, you're able to, I think, support so many people. There's many that are coming to mind that I know of who have gone through a similar experience where somebody that they love is either no longer there mentally or has changed so much physically.
Yes.
And I think we often forget about the caretaker. There's so much that goes into the prayers and support for the person who is ill, that we forget about the 24/7 care, whether they're doing it themselves or even going to the hospital every day, and what a toll that takes on the caretaker. And
I've known many cases where the caretaker died before the patient. They went before because of the stress. It's a very interesting phenomenon, but I can understand it. He wasn't that worried about anything. He just, and I was worried all the time. And he had a pacemaker and a defibrillator, and which would go off at times and scare me to death, and him too. It was just a strain all the time on me, but not so much on him because he wasn't thinking about it like I was. So, not that it was easy for him. It was not. Don't mistake me. But, it was very difficult. And yet I learned more during that time. I became closer to the Creator, God, whatever you want to call it, than I ever had been before. So it was a blessing in disguise in many ways.
And does that transition into your music? Did your music start at the same time as well?
No, the music started before.
Okay.
I was getting ready to teach a meditation course in an out-of-state school. Well, some of the teachers in that school, not the school. And I was preparing for it, and I was upstairs. This was back in 1983 or so. I was preparing for that. I was up using my little typewriter, typing away in notes and sources and so forth. I had a spinet piano in that room. Well, while I was working so hard on this, a little tune came into my... I had taken piano lessons as a child, but I wasn't proficient, and still am not at playing the piano. But anyway, a little tune popped into my head, not one that I recognized, and I didn't pay much attention to it at first. I thought, I'm busy doing all this typing and working. It wouldn't leave me alone. It just kept returning and returning. I was really kind of frustrated, so I got up, went over to the piano, and I picked out the tune with my right hand. I never could play by ear. Picked it out with my right hand, and lo and behold, believe it or not, the left hand joined in, played all the chords, the runs, everything for this first composition. And it was called This Precious Morning. It was a morning prayer. And after that, I'm getting a chill talking about it. It was as though the floodgates had been let open. And I composed, I guess, about 13 songs during that year, mostly instrumentals, some with words. Then people started telling me, you need to record this, you need to record it. I played it all by memory because I didn't have it, I couldn't notate it. And so finally, I decided to go ahead and have it recorded. And my first recording, and you have it, CD, was Let Your Spirit Soar. And the second one that I did a couple of years later or so was called Sunrise, and it has vocals to it, some of the songs. So that was part of the So Much More that I was told about in my experience. The writing, the poetry, the music, has always been part of the So Much More. And I'm almost 80 years old, and I know there's still so much more. It just keeps coming. As long as I'm open to it, it doesn't stop.
And that's so key, is to be open. I think from your first experience it was interesting when you described your head expanding, and it was about let it go.
Let it go.
And so
set it free.
Set it free.
Yes.
And being that openness, that channel to be able to receive all of this inspiration that you're given.
It's been more of a blessing to me than to anybody else. I hope it blesses other people, but I know it's been a terrific blessing to me, continues to be, and I feel will continue to be until I leave this earth. I think I have time maybe to read a little something that kind of sums it up. If that's
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And these writings come through me, not from me. And I don't have time to go into that experience because that's another whole thing. But it starts, there is a saying that no one gets out of this world alive. Nothing could be further from the truth. You leave the world more fully alive than you have ever been. Of course, your physical body ceases to function, but your physical body does not define your life. Your spirit defines your life. Your spirit is designed to be eternal, will never die. Your spirit is the lifeblood of God which flows through you, the divine energy which enlivens you. It carries a DNA which identifies you as a child of God. Why should you fear death, knowing that the life of the spirit continues? Could it be that even though you profess to believe that the spirit never dies, doubt creeps in because you cannot prove that it is so? If your faith is weaker than your doubt, then fear will be the result. How can you increase your faith and dismiss doubt? Only by turning to the one who gives life and instills faith through complete trust. Amen.
It's a very beautiful passage, and it resonates with me so much because I see so many people. There's a friend of mine who uses the phrase is that we spend more of our life dying than we do living.
Living, yes. That's absolutely true, and that's sad.
It is. I think we're so focused on the limited amount of time we have here, or fear that we're going to be ill, that we never truly live. And I think what you just read sums up, the releasing the fear. If you could say right now that, even if you die, what's the worst thing that could happen? You could die. Well, what if that wasn't even bad? If you could release all that fear, what would you try to do? What would you attempt? Would you love more? Would you try to create something? Would you move? What's that dream that's being held back right now from your fears?
See, that's what that near-death experience did for me. It removed all fear of death. I might fear the way I would die. I don't want to be in a nursing home forever. I don't want to be demented, all that. But I don't fear death at all since that experience. I just do not. I don't say that I have a death wish. I don't mean that. But I look forward to, experiencing that and more, because it's just another form of life as far as I'm concerned. It's a transition into another life. I think that dimension, that veil between dimensions is so thin that we're able to pierce it once in a while. And I think that's happened to me. I don't know why. I don't know why I was blessed that way. but I can come back with, messages and such that seem to inspire. They inspire me anyway. So, and that's my sermon for the day.
Well, I do think I love your music. I do have the Let Your Spirit Soar CD,
yes.
And it is so beautiful. It is unimaginable that you don't know how to write music, that this just came to you.
It just comes to me, yes.
It is so complex and so beautiful, and I know when I play it, there's an ease that comes over me.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. That's exactly what I wanted to do, and it's what it does for me. And I surprise myself sometimes. How does this happen? How does this happen? I know it's a gift. I realize that, and I'm thankful for it. It's been wonderful, and the wonders never cease. And I don't want to preach, but if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. You just have to be open. And your gift might not be music; it may be something else. Whatever it is, it's just as precious. And it's to be valued and used, and to help yourself and others.
Absolutely. I think everyone has their gift, and either they're afraid of it, or they're closing their eyes, they're not aware of it.
Yes.
Or most of the time with the clients that I work with,